Alright. Okay. I got it back. I got it back, bro. Let's see. Oops.
Okay. Oh, just send me the new link and we'll start a new stream, I guess, and we'll have to figure out what to do with certain things because
Yes. Figure this out better.
more stable on my end.
Copy. Should
Just
just
whenever
be
you
on the
can.
YouTube channel. Yeah, it says we're live.
Oh,
Got
then
it.
send me the link, please. Only so much I can do right now, but send me the link, please.
Yeah.
To Crazy Mate Gaming. Okay.
It's good. 717. As of 717 is good.
Okay, well, give me a second to get back on it. I don't know if we're... Okay. Now they can hear everything we're saying, right?
Yes, they can. Yes.
Okay,
We're
well,
back.
I'm back. We're back. Okay.
Alright, we
Cool.
got it.
So, the
Technical
difficulties happened.
Yeah. Let's go.
When we were starting to talk about, like...
Really get into Phil Spencer's interview and like everything that he was talking about.
Break it down, and we kind of hit one topic already, but we're breaking it down about the next topic that we got talking about when we talked about the Xbox holiday and people buying a Series S and new people coming in and how the Zoc team did really good and that they didn't have like any major problems over the holiday. The servers were working pretty good, and that we really do need to let people know like things don't always just work out. There's people behind the scenes like helping to make sure things are going smoothly. So we just need to tip our hats to the Zoc team over at Xbox, and that's kind of one of the things they talked about in that interview. But we can push past in this Xbox holiday little part of the interview and the what they were talking about. We can get into like stock and Series S specifically was a major point that Phil Spencer did want to point out about some things about the Series S, and then they talked stock, and I know everyone wants to know when they can get their hands on this and this
Well, you
stock
know more about
because
the stock than I do.
well, what, let's talk about the Series S. Talk about the Series. I mean, Phil Spencer specifically said that in certain games, load times are faster on the Series S because of the fact that they're not loading in 4K textures, and in certain instances, like without the 4K textures, SSD speeds faster, despite the fact that it's the same SSD, like pretty much the same exact SSD. And I think that's really awesome. What do you think about the Series S actually doing better than people thought? Like it may not hit 4K, it may not even hit 1440p, but it optimized games for the Series S are able to hit 60 frames per second, even if they downgrade the resolution. What do you think about that, Chris, mate?
It's basically everything the same besides the GPU, right? On the S, you have an SSD still. That alone does so much for you. People don't understand an SSD has kind of processing powers. They've made SSDs to where they have processing power within itself, and it works in tangent with your CPU, which it does some of the processes beforehand, and that can do a lot for you, and that makes it so much faster. And when you don't have this graphical pressure on top of that's overloaded by your GPU and other things, you can you can get a lot. It can be a lot faster and it's a lot smoother. That's what I'm trying to say. It's a lot smoother process because there's less textures or there's less, yeah.
Well, specifically, one thing I've thought about with the Series S, and I own a Series S, so I can tell you, I think it's a good console. Like specifically with the Series S, there may be less RAM, right? And there's 16 gigabytes of RAM in the Series X and 10 gigabytes of RAM in the Series S, and then after system allocation and stuff, that's knocked down to 13 for the Series X and 8 for the Series S. And people are like, well, it has less RAM. Well, it's the same type of RAM, but yes, it does have less RAM. But when you're not having to deal with the 4K textures, and you
Yeah,
don't have
exactly.
to, yeah. So with the Series S being at such a low point, you pointed out that PlayStation people are hopping on the Xbox bandwagon, and they're saying this is Game Pass mainly is a major thing with the Series S, like it's actually a really good thing that they did release the Series S, even though people were saying, why would they do this? This is stupid. And Phil Spencer even talks about we in the past, and maybe a little bit in this interview, he specifically says we had a lot of talk and debate amongst our company and specifically the Xbox team whether or not a Series S was a good idea. And to us, it made sense. And I think it does make sense.
Yeah. Well, you have a low entry point for these people, and to get into your ecosystem that have never dealt with the Xbox ecosystem before to get into, and then you have Game Pass, which I want to point out something that also could be the case where you have an SSD and where you have Game Pass where you can fastly download these games. You're searching through libraries of games. Oh, this seems nice. I want to download it. It downloads it a lot faster so you can get into it and these of course you have these big games that will take longer, but it adds more to being able to explore new games and find new games that you've never uh, played before.
Specifically with Game Pass, and I know a lot of people talk about the low storage. There's only 512 gigabytes of storage in the Series S, and when you allocate that down, that's 364 gigabytes, right? So yes, there isn't a ton of storage, but as the generation goes on, as the generation goes on, the games files are gonna get like they're going to get bigger in some instances with some developers, but new technologies, specifically Xbox is figuring out lots of new technologies about how to make the game files smaller despite the fact that games are getting bigger, right? You see this with
Yeah,
Modern Warfare and the ability to only install either um the campaign or the multiplayer, and then Warzone separate on that. And even then, when they change the textures, and like if people make and optimize games for the Series S, they're not going to be as big as games for the Series X because um the textures aren't as big. That it doesn't take as much
that is true. Yeah,
storage.
that is true. Not
Yeah.
as much storage. Uh,
When we talk about the Series S, Phil Spencer specifically has said in the past, like it made sense with the way the Xbox One S was marketed and the Xbox One X was marketed, and it's not a far cry from how things used to be, in my opinion. So we can wrap up our thoughts on the Series S, but you go ham. I want you to tell your thoughts on the Series S. Despite the fact you don't own a Series S, you're mostly PC. I want you to talk about your thoughts on the
well,
Series S.
I am PC. Yes, I do play on my PC all the time, and my PC does have an SSD. And I could tell you that right now. I want to download all my games on my SSD. I can get, and that's why I kind of bring up the thing of it doesn't take as long to download these games on an SSD, but also I can jump into a game within 10 or less seconds
Yeah,
from
exactly.
from from my desktop, uh, opening it up. 10 seconds, I'm in.
And
And
SSDs are amazing.
they are they're really fast, but also it's it's a lot. It's really small. It's a lot smaller than I actually thought it would be. To be honest,
Series S
the Series S
is
it is a
really
lot
small.
smaller.
Yeah.
But it's overall, it's still a good, powerful machine. It really is, and it would be up to par with my PC. And I really do want one.
The fact that you're a PC person that's saying I want a Series S because it's more budget friendly, and you have a 1080p monitor, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
lots of
you
people are
see it.
still on 1080p TVs.
Yeah, and CMBR, I'll pronounce it, but if it's, but he says that his friend has a 1080p TV. A lot of people still have a 1080p TV, and it's like these people that got Series X's, they don't have the TV or the equipment to go along with it, and so they're not willing to go that far because you got to get a lot more along with it to get that full experience. And just a $300 console and you get Game Pass, that's you're set. You can play games and you got first party, you got lots of other different types of games. They are pushing uh, variety. They want so many types of games on the platform, and that's why they've got studios. They got a lot more studios. That's why it's like when Phil Spencer said, Bethesda is huge to us because a lot of the IPs they got, yes, but also they're really renowned developers, and they're really good at what they do, and they've got a lot more that boosts their developers by a lot, but also they're good at making RPGs, and they're just trying to expand the knowledge of their developer teams on different uh, genres of games, types of games.
Yes, they are. And the Series S is an amazing machine. I agree with everything you said there for the most part. We can't keep talking about the Series S when there was big points that Phil Spencer was talking about on his interview, and it's quite amazing. Like some of the things he had to say, everything Phil Spencer says is dissected every single time by people, and he even said he's like I've made mistakes of explaining too early too much in detail about like the plans, and it confuses people because he can't actually he can't actually reveal the plans, but he just like makes comments in interviews or something and people get confused. And he was talking about like a subscription program for consoles or like being able to upgrade your console, and the fact that all access comes out, and it had been a thing, but all access comes out this year, and that's a way people can upgrade their consoles. People can upgrade them, and people say, hey, i don't want to spend I don't want to spend $300 on a console or $500 on a console, but the Series S or the Series X seems appetizing. I just don't want to spend that money. I already bought a PlayStation 5. I already bought a Switch, and maybe a rumored Switch Pro when it comes out, if it ever does. And they say, well, all access, you don't even have to fork the money now. You just have to have a decent credit score, and you pay us monthly, and
Yeah,
you also have a subscription to Game Pass as well, where you don't even have to buy a game ever. And it's a great casual box, and that's
it
my
really
piece
is.
on the Series S right now.
It's also like a lot smaller than like I said, it was a lot smaller than I really thought, and that is also huge in say Asian markets or the Japanese market where you have small places and they like this things small, and you compare the size to the two, a nice little box that is the Series S versus a tower of that's a fancy tower that's the PS5.
Yeah, and even the Series X is quite big, even if it's like not as big as a PlayStation 5 in some ways, but a small box you can put in your backpack. They even marketed it in a way where it's like, hey, you can literally throw this console in your backpack, right?
Yeah,
And it's amazing, but we want to know about stock. When can people get their hands on these consoles? And Phil Spencer talked about this. He said, I know people want the console. People are telling us through Twitter, through Xbox Wire comments or whatever, just like through social media, and they're upset. Why can't I get my hands on a Series X? And even Larry Herb was like, yeah, I get people tweeting at me all the time like, I want a Series S, I want a Series X. Why can't I get my hands on them? And he actually went and down and dirty a little bit more than he has. Phil Spencer says, we're making them as fast as we can. We're literally making them as fast as we can. Yeah, he's on call with AMD. He was on call with AMD's a few weeks before the end of the year, and Lisa Su specifically saying like, what can we do to make it so we're pushing out systems as fast as possible, and that we have these SoCs pushed out as fast as possible so we can make consoles. And Lisa just says like, it's just a time thing. We just got to keep going as best as we can. I know the demand's there, but when you have these factories that it's not only AMD that uses these factories to make the chipsets.
Sony, so the PS5, it goes through AMD as well.
Well, Qualcomm as well is using a lot of these main factories that are used for chipsets and SoCs. So it's a lot of different people trying the tech, and you also have just in the tech world right now, it's hard to find things like graphics cards, the 3080s, the 3070s, the 3060s, right? It's really hard to find those cards, and the stock will come, rumored April, but he just pretty much said, hey, we hear your cries. There isn't really an update, but here's a small update. What are your thoughts on what Phil Spencer had to say about stock and how people can't get their hands on the Series S and the Series X or the PS5 or the 3080 cards, right?
I think he's trying to really get it out there, that we are doing the best we can on this. There's only so many that you can make, and we're running at full production. We are trying to get as much of these out there, and you see occasional drops on sites or where they'll occasionally drop the X in the PlayStation 5 or the Series S, X, and PlayStation 5, and we're kind of consistently seeing that, but it is kind of slow. But they're doing as much as they possibly can. And he was just trying to really reiterate that.
That point. He was trying to reiterate that point, specifically saying like, it's gonna happen. We're gonna get more consoles. The one question I have that is really important, I think, is why can't they figure out something to stall scalpers? Scalpers are my big issue. What are your thoughts on scalpers, Crazy Mate? Like
that is true. It is sad that you have these people, and I don't really know of what they could do besides with better security on their sites, but I think Microsoft and Sony should be trying to help in that effort as well. I don't know if they are or not, but if they are, then that's good, and we should be able to expect them to do something to help with that. But once the demand is down, I think that there's gonna be not really any reason for people to be scalping anymore either. But who knows? It may still go on.
Yeah, the scalping's gonna happen. I hope over the years we figure out a way. Like even if you reserve, like, hey, you get an email, stocks dropping at these retailers on this day. Do you want to reserve yours? Do you want to reserve it? Well, that a big thing about stock, in my opinion, is like people aren't patient, so they pay exuberant prices.
Yeah, they do.
For a console.
It works. It obviously works, or people wouldn't do it.
Well, yeah, like I see it on the Facebook Marketplace. I see it on eBay. I see it everywhere. It's like you're boosting the price of these consoles, and in my opinion, all we need to do is be steadfast and stay patient. Like if the tech companies like Microsoft and Sony aren't going to do something in the short term about scalping, and it's more of a long-term effort that they're pushing because they saw how bad it was with COVID and everything. Like, we didn't see this with the Xbox One and PS4 launch. We didn't see this much scalping. It just wasn't a thing. We didn't see this with the Xbox One X. I got mine day of. I was able to pre-order a couple days after pre-orders went live, and I got mine day of. I went to Best Buy, I just picked it up, and there was a decent amount of people who had been there, but it's like there wasn't a massive amount of people running to grab a console in 2017 like there was in 2020. Like, people are wanting them so bad, they're stuck at home, and then you got the scalpers, they're looking to make a profit off this. And I think this year specifically showed Sony, AMD, Nvidia, and Microsoft that, hey, we have to do something about scalping. But since the tech companies are probably thinking long term about scalping, us personally, this is my outcry to everyone out there. I don't want you to pay an exuberant price for a console that costs $500. I don't want you to pay $1,000 for a console that costs $500. Like,
just be patient.
we need
Just
to be
wait. Be
patient
patient,
and wait.
and you'll save so much. Just like I said, they are still slowly kicking them out as fast as they can, and they're making more as fast as they can. It will eventually hit a point to where it slows down, and where people stop just gobbling them up, or more get out there, more people get them, to where you'll be able to just walk into the store and see them on the shelf.
True, and it'll happen hopefully April. But CMBR in the chat brings up a really good point. He says that the problem with scalping is that there's zero incentive for these retailers. You know, they're making money either way.
Exactly.
But if
Money's
the
money.
outcries are there, and Sony's hearing the outcries, and Microsoft's hearing the outcries, and AMD's hearing the outcries, you know, and we don't know what's going to be happening with Intel's new CPUs, you know, that they're releasing this quarter, hopefully, I think. But you got all these tech companies and Microsoft. We need to be like, hey, you guys need to crack down because these retailers, like Best
the
Buy,
retailers don't
Target,
care, and it's Microsoft and Sony that need to start doing something about it, and to help alleviate it, and to put an effort towards it, because these other sites, they're making money either way. Why would they care?
Yeah, exactly. And artificial demand too. It's like you see artificial people saying, "Oh, Microsoft, Sony, they're creating artificial demand." It's like they didn't create a pandemic and 2020 boosts gaming in general. Gaming. That's one of the things that I want to bring up that Phil Spencer said. He says that gaming has doubled, tripled. You know, that the trajectory that gaming was on, you know, like year over year, was already good, but with 2020 it like catapulted the trajectory of gaming and the industry in general. And why wouldn't Sony want to sell more consoles? Why wouldn't Xbox want to sell more consoles? They're not going to create artificial demand. It's not like they're raising the prices. It's the scalpers that are raising the prices. The demand was already there.
Well, sadly, you see some people that think that, but it's like they don't know. These software companies make money off of software. Game development and game companies are software companies, and Microsoft and Sony and PlayStation, they make the consoles to get people into the ecosystem, into buying the software, which is where they make their bulk of their money. That's why you see free games on an app. They're free because they can sell you stuff in the game for real money, and they make money off of it. They make a lot of money off of it. It's the entry point is what they want. Is they want people to more and more people to enter, and when you have somebody buy hundreds of consoles, nobody's that just sit there because they're trying to sell them for extreme prices.
They're not
Nobody's
buying
playing
games.
They're not buying games. They're not playing games.
Exactly.
It's useless to them.
you see this incentive with the way that the industry is going, specifically with Microsoft and Sony and the Series S and the PlayStation 5 Digital Edition. They push these cheaper consoles, right? So that are digital only, and people are paying more money, whether it's through Game Pass, whether it's through digital sales, they're paying more money to buy games. It's like because
Oh yes,
digital
and
obviously costs more than physical.
it's like you can even break it down even more to entries. Like even in games, you buy the game $60, $30 or whatever. You got transactions in this game. Like Fortnite, they've made so much money because of, and they jack up the prices for skins. So, but people buy it, and there's additional content you can buy, DLCs. That's more extra money on that.
Yeah, there's that too. And we can get in the weeds with microtransactions, and in-game purchases, but I'm specifically talking at a base level, buying games, subscribing to something like Game Pass or PS Now, um, and playing games, buying games, being an active person, not just buying a console to have a stock like these scalpers are doing. And I've seen it taper off somewhat since the holidays, but the stock that they just have sitting there isn't doing anything
It's
for
doing
Microsoft. It's
nothing.
absolutely nothing.
So
Or
it
Sony.
would behoove them not to do something about it. They need to.
And this is my cry to Sony, Microsoft. This is my cry to Nvidia. You on your site and put pressure on retailers. These companies, they have to create different steps of verification to make sure it's not a bot that's buying them all up.
And
You can
they
go
need
on there and
to
you
they
can
need to
wait in line.
start with their site. They need to
Yeah,
start with
they
their
need to
site
start
because
with
of
their site.
that could, if they start with their site, more people would go to, they'd get more, kind of, in a way, they'd make more money off of the end because they've, when they go through a retailer, they've got to pay a little bit of that price to retailers. So they'd make a little more money off of it, off of people going to the site, and they'd get what they want.
Yeah, it's true.
For the more hands, more people, a bigger amount of people uh, buying buying and playing games on their platform.
Well, that's where we're at with stock. Hopefully in April we're gonna get more stock. The games aren't even necessarily here yet. Yeah, we're getting some games, and we're gonna talk about one of those games being the Medium, and next week we're actually gonna talk about the new Indiana Jones game that was announced, and we'll talk all about this um, next week. But right now, I want to get into the Bethesda acquisition part of the interview, which was a major topic. And actually, we can bring up certain things like the fact that they have a ton of studios, and one of their studios is making a new game that has been announced. And the exclusivity, people are still, every time an executive at Xbox talks about exclusivity for the Bethesda deal, they're always sitting there wondering, people dissect every word, and they're like, well, did they is what they said, does that mean that it's going to be exclusive or not exclusive? And we won't know, but personally I don't think they'll be exclusive. But I'm not even necessarily talking exclusivity, but the Bethesda deal was such a massive purchase, and Phil Spencer talks about that. Remember when Phil Spencer talked about that, right?
It's crucial to Xbox. That he literally said that it's crucial. It's crucial to our plan. And what you got to think about? Okay, what's their plan? What's Phil Spencer's plan? His plan is Game Pass. It's crucial to Game Pass. Okay, so if you have, and see, this is what I don't get about people who have the argument. Oh, they have to. They miss out on the money. No, the more subscribers you have in Game Pass, yes, you have more more money and revenue coming in each month, and it stacks up. It really does, uh, and it looks better. But if you keep it on that platform, you prevent those people that would go over to Game Pass and go across platforms to play those games. And if you leave it on the PlayStation, they're not going to go over. They don't need to. So why would they? So you're completely annihilating those potentials by keeping on that platform, and that's what they want: as many potential subscribers as possible. Some PlayStation players and fans won't even care. They're like, I'm never gonna touch Xbox. No, it doesn't matter. I'll play it on PC. I can play it on PC. Or
See, when in 2016 when they pushed the Play Anywhere narrative, and they're still doing the Play Anywhere, it's not their main focus now like it was in 2016. Because in 2016 that was before Game Pass was a thing, and even in 2017 they were pushing it hard before Game Pass was big, right? But the exclusivity, specifically talking, like you said, like I get your point, Crazy Man, I really do. But if they do a timed exclusivity for Game Pass, right? Or if they don't do it, even if they don't do a timed exclusivity, and they say this is cheaper on Game Pass technically because Sony could up, they might be
they
making
are upping
$70
prices,
copies of Bethesda games.
$70
Yeah.
to. We're starting to see it. So
Now exclusivity, at least timed, is something that makes sense to me. I don't know about you, but it's not only exclusivity that I think is massive with this game. I mean, with these games that Bethesda's going to be making, and the fact that Microsoft has purchased them, and Phil Spencer says in the interview he's hoping late February is going to be when things are pretty much final. You know?
yeah, because they can't talk right now. The deal's not even done, and they could screw it all up by saying the wrong thing. So
Yeah, exactly. They
right,
don't
so
want to say
can't.
too much about it.
They can't release certain information, and like I said, when that deal is done, we are going to hear a lot more news about what's going on. I mean, they've already kind of they did a tease yet this week of Indiana Jones and Machine Games with Indiana Jones, and that's blowing up, and but we expect to get even more with just on every front. It's like if they want every quarter to roll out big games in Game Pass, that we can see that starting to happen. It's going to be a lot longer down the road for that, but along that we'll get news about it and what's going on. And the Xbox, I don't think is going to leave us in the dark. They're not going to.
I don't think they'll leave us in the dark, but also they can't go out, like you said, and just say, hey, this is what Machine Games are making. This is what Tango Gameworks is making after they do what they're already doing. And they can't just be like, it's against Microsoft and Xbox's, philosophies and the way they think to say, hey, despite the fact that PlayStation had two exclusive games by Bethesda Softworks, publishing, right? We still are allowing them to be exclusive, right? But the thing is, you can say that they're too nice. Maybe Phil Spencer's too nice. Maybe Xbox is too nice. But CMBR says it. It makes more sense. And to me, it makes the most sense that you want to bring people into Game Pass. And if you say, hey, this is exclusive to Xbox ecosystem, and Game Pass is the cheapest way to play this game, and all you got to do is subscribe, and you can cancel at any time, then that makes more sense to me. And at least timed is important.
Yeah, you think of this like I've got 100 people or 1,000 people that give me $1. Then I've got 1,000,000 people that give me $1. Millions of it and the more people and that stack onto it, it just grows exponentially, and it's also cheaper in Game Pass. They want people buying their software because a lot of people still buy games through Game Pass because on a cheaper price. They'll still support the studio and buy the game.
Yeah, cheaper
you see
price
it
because
helps
you get
sales,
that discount.
not diminish them.
For developers, there's so much praise from developers about Game Pass, and even Sony says, "Watch." They're telling their consumers to watch and wait because they're going to mirror Game Pass in a way.
Yeah, I don't see why they. they wouldn't.
I don't see why they wouldn't either. Like was such a massive deal with Bethesda that it changed everyone's talking points. Where they say Xbox has no games, and that was a narrative that pushed up into 2020, and it's still kind of here, but it's dispersing. It's a narrative that's dispersing. Xbox no longer has no games, but they want that narrative to stay, so they scream on Twitter, "Why would you make this game exclusive? Why would you make this game exclusive? I want to be able to play this on my PlayStation." And I even saw a tweet today of someone talking about the Indiana Jones. I think Tim Dog shared it or something, and it was like, "Oh, please, 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 please put this out on PlayStation. Please put this out on PlayStation." But a casual that doesn't want to buy a console, you don't have to buy an Xbox. You don't. Just pull out your phone, pay for Game Pass Ultimate, play as many games as you want.
There's so many.
Pretty much.
They're building doors into the building. That's what they're doing. They're building more entrances into their ecosystem. With on just
exactly.
a TV, or somebody who's like a casual who bought a Samsung TV, turns it on, and is like going through, ooh, what's this Game Pass thing here? Looks at it, is like, sees a game that they've like, oh, I've seen that before. I kind of want to play it, you know. It's hypothetically, but there's so many ways that it could happen where people could come across it, and you're making more entrances to the building. It's just that simple.
You're 100% right about the entrances to the building, and that building is Xbox ecosystem and Xbox doing good by people talking about Xbox, playing Xbox's games, you know. And I want to move forward a little bit past the Bethesda exclusivity, because this is going to be hashed over and over again, and it has been hashed to death last year. And like, as any new news that comes up about exclusivity or even just a Bethesda deal, people are going to be talking about that. And we personally on the BIA Gamecast, we're going to be talking about that, so don't worry too much. But I want to move on.
We'll keep up with
and
it.
segue. Yeah, I want to segue with what we're talking about with xCloud and Game Pass to 3 to 10 year horizons. So this is what Phil Spencer talks about. This is the last point I want to get on about his interview, where he talks about 3 to 10 year horizons. And yeah, some people took that as, oh, games aren't coming for 3 to 10 years. But that's not what he means. He means, what are the horizons that I see Xbox and what we could become? You know, Horizon 0, Horizon 1, and Horizon 2. Horizon 0 is in the now. Horizon 1 is
Horizon
1 to
Zero
3
Dawn?
Years.
That's what I thought about when he said that. So Horizon
That's
Zero.
what I thought about too. And that's kind of funny, but is Horizon Zero Dawn coming to Xbox? No, I don't think it is, but it is on PC. So if you have a PC and you want to play Horizon Zero Dawn and you don't have a PlayStation, play Horizon Zero Dawn, and that's awesome. But what do you think about what he said with the Horizons? And I specifically want to ask you what you think about people twisting his words into making it out like games aren't going to be coming for 3 to 10 years.
Well, if you see something just like on Twitter about a clip of him saying that, you might think, well, 3 to 10 years? What is he talking about? Is he talking about games? He's got to be talking about games. But he also goes, he goes through the, like you said, Horizon 0, Horizon 1, and Horizon 2. It's 1 to 2 years, like 2 to 3 years or something like that, and then 3 to 10 years.
1 to 3 years. 1 to 3 years and 3 to 10.
3 to 10. Yeah. They're constantly doing stuff, but 3 to 10s, he talks about in their things that they've done in the past that haven't even worked and that doesn't even come out. They're major investments. It's like their goal of what, 3 billion gamers?
Yeah, that's a Horizon 2.
That is a massive goal. They're overreaching. And that's how you see Xbox innovate so much. And yeah, it hasn't worked out for them very much in the past, but because they're constantly trying to, they're going down pathways that oh, I want to experiment in this, and then and try something in this. At so many at the same time, they're trying to do a ton of different things on top of what we already have. They're trying to move the industry, the gaming industry, forward. They're forward thinking. That's what they're trying to do, and you have ideas, and they may not always work out, and that's what he's talking about. Our bigger picture ideas, our longer term goals and ideas. That's what he's talking about. Not anything to do with games. Games taking 10 years. What games have taken 10 years to develop for? There might be some, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, even Cyberpunk 2077 didn't take 10 years. I personally, I don't think we'll ever know exactly how long it took. I think it was more like 7 years. Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's not one of those
that's
things.
what I got from it. But of course, you could. People like skewing things. They like making a conflict out of it, and I just don't understand. I just don't understand it, and I never will.
Yeah, business strategy is what he was talking about, not games. Specifically, things like I mean, you know, things like xCloud, things like Game Pass, things like All Access. How can they move the industry forward with different programs, with different software, and even the way they make games? They don't want to be locked to making a game for one set console for 7 straight years. Think about that. If you
Yeah,
have a console that has the same hardware for 7 straight years, where you're locked to making games for that console, and you don't put your games out for PC, you don't have them on phones, you don't have them on tablets, you don't have them on TVs, and you're stuck in a box. They don't want to be stuck in a box. They're literally the outside of the box. They think outside of the box, and this is what Phil Spencer has cultivated. He has changed the culture of Microsoft, where I think it was slowly happening anyways, but he bolstered it out. You know,
yeah.
business strategies.
You also you have other things like machine learning and all these other uh, variable rate shading things that add to it to make development so much easier, uh, so much better, and to where they can give time to these developers to add more features and do more with the game, and also help with size, and that they're pushing innovation in that way as well. It's just like they're trying in so many ways to see how they can push gaming uh, to the future. That's
Yeah,
what I really love
and
about Xbox.
me too. So when you talk about Horizon Zero, it's pretty much they know what's going to happen whether they announced it or not. They know their game plan for the next year, and it's most likely not going to change a ton. I mean, we saw it change from 2019 game awards to 2020 game awards, obviously because COVID hit. That was an external thing that no one saw coming, that they
Yeah,
had to they had to deal with, and they had to just figure it out. So, but that's Horizon Zero. They know, and games will be coming. Halo Infinite is coming. You have this new game by Machine Games, right? That it has been announced that they're working on a game. It's coming. You know, the coalition didn't just stop making games after Gears 5. I mean, they just released Hive Busters. So Horizon 1 talks about 1 to 3 years. It's things that they pretty much know could happen and will happen, but they don't know what the climate will necessarily be in that time. And then things like, things that might most likely aren't going to work, but they want to be ambitious. And it was it was one of those things with Horizon 2. They talk about that. That's 3 to 10 years, and that was one of those things with back compat. It's like, okay, this is most likely not going to work, but it's an idea we have, and it actually paid off for them in the long
yeah.
run. You know?
Well, I see two different ideologies of thinking. You have Xbox, they're trying to change things, and then Sony's somewhat reluctant and trying to be in their old ways. And more in the past, not as much now, but they're still more in the older ways of doing things. While it's like even with the Xbox One Connect, they're trying to innovate and move things forward, and that didn't end up panning out for them. That was a huge failure.
Yes, the Kinect was a disaster. We don't want to talk about the Kinect, the Xbox One launch. That is just it saddens me to this
We're
day.
into better things now, Aaron or
Yeah.
bro. Yeah, we're into better things now, so we're good.
Yes, it saddens me to this day, but they at least they tried something out, even if it failed. Wouldn't you rather fall down and fail and get back up and try harder than everything just work out for you always? You know, that's why The Last of Us 2 may be a divisive game, and it may have been one of those games where some people think it failed, but at least they tried to push the needle in different ways that hadn't been done before.
Yeah, but sometimes when you're in the public eye, it can be disastrous. It can be very bad. Like take Cyberpunk and their reputation
Oh
is in the gutter.
yeah. Their reputation is in the gutter at the moment, but I think they are redeemable.
Well, of
Xbox
course.
was redeemable. Cyberpunk, I mean CD Projekt Red, redeemable, I believe, as well as even Activision. Even though they're so far down that rabbit hole, I think they could be redeemable.
Well, of course. You always have to think that. You always have to be willing to accept that too. But there's some people who probably just are so angry with them or whatever that they're like, oh, I'm not gonna buy this game. Yeah, and I'm done with CD Projekt Red. They took 7 years on this game forever for a pile of trash. No, but they they'll come back. It's gonna get better. Me personally, I'm used to early builds of games. I play on PC and I played a lot of early builds of games and it doesn't bother me. Bugs don't bother me that much. But yeah, I can
Right.
understand when it's not playable at all. But let's not get
I
into
can
that.
understand that. But even just think about this: Xbox preview games. They took a page out of Steam's book. Do you see many games on PlayStation that are preview games? It's like, hey, we know this game's not released. It's half the prices that it's gonna be, but this is a work in progress game. Please check it out. That's another thing that Xbox does, that they say, hey, game development isn't just cut and dry. It's not just
It's
black and
not.
white.
Take my favorite game, 7 Days to Die. They do that with Steam. They're still in
Exactly.
alpha, and they got onto the console. They're they're on the Xbox One. The game is on Xbox One, and they got on the console. And it's still a really, really earlier build. That's the thing. One thing I could say that they need to try to do. They need to be able to implement mods. If they really want to capture the PC community and people from PCs and customization, truly be all about choice and customization, mod support where people from the community can go in like they have with Halo 5. People in the community go in and they create maps, but you create mods,
Yeah.
and
And
that would
actually,
bring so much more so much more replayability in their games. So much. I don't see. It's just give me good things for them. They need to do that.
I love that you bring this up, Crazy Mate, because I had forgotten about this section of the interview. But Phil Spencer and Larry Herb talk about the possibility of things like mods, taking the community and letting them help you build a game.
Yes.
Minecraft,
Oh
Minecraft,
yes.
Halo Forge, and it's as well as mods that could become a thing on console in the future. And if Xbox pushes mods to become a thing on consoles, Sony pretty much would have to follow suit, in my opinion, because it's and the
It
funny
would.
thing about the Bethesda acquisition is that Bethesda was already pushing mods on console for some games, right?
That is interesting. That is true. That is true.
It is very true. And every time Phil Spencer talks, I love to hear what he has to say. It's great. It's very important to me because he's a role model to me in a way when it comes to Xbox. He took Xbox from becoming nothing. Xbox was going to be nothing before soon is what it seemed like, and he took it and he rebuilt Xbox from the ground up is what it felt like. And I'm so happy to have a new Phil Spencer interview that dropped at the end of last year,
Oh,
but
I love
we
Phil.
really do.
I love
Yeah,
listening to what Phil Spencer has to say, but it's been a long topic. Now
let's push through to the next topic, which
let's
is
talk.
the
Yeah,
medium.
let's talk about the medium. Oh, I'm
So
so excited for this game, dude.
you talk exclusives, right? You talk about exclusives on the series platform or
This
PC.
is
Like,
going to be a really good one, really good
yeah,
exclusive.
the medium's not coming to the Xbox One consoles. They're going to be able to push boundaries, and some people, if anyone doesn't know what the medium is, it is a psychological horror game, kind of like Silent Hill, where you play as this protagonist called Marianne, and she's trying to find clues about someone's death, and she goes to this hotel. She goes to this haunted hotel, but she has spirit powers where she has set powers where she can see
Into
into
the
the
other
spirits,
world.
into the spirit world realm, especially about people who died in a certain area, like that haunted hotel. And um so it was last Monday, I think it was, um where Bloober Team released a 14-minute gameplay video of the medium, and it was cut in 3 sections. um they were small 3 different parts of the game. They didn't really give away story beats, but they did. There are some new things we know about the gameplay elements, as well as some story, some elements about the story, but not like massively. So you watched the videos, I sent in the show notes, right, Derek?
Yes, I
Crazy
did.
Meat. And one of them was Bloober Team. The other one was actually 12 things you don't know, 12 things you need to know about the medium by the Euro Gamer. And then there was also an article, obviously, by Windows Central talking and dissecting the medium. But what do you think about the medium?
Oh, I want to play it. Like, I played. They also made Blair. Was it Blair Witch, right?
They did.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Wait for because I wasn't quite sure, and I don't want to be wrong on that. But I played that with my girlfriend. I had so much fun with that. That was I thought it was too short. I thought the game was too short, and to have another psychological horror made by them. I played that game. I love it. I love horror games, and it looks so interesting. The way they did things with the fixed camera, the way they did things with the split screens, and I want to know more about it. I can't wait for this thing to come out. I'm gonna download it on my PC. I'm gonna play it on there because
Yeah, see,
it looks
you don't
incredible.
own a next gen console, so you wouldn't be able to play this. But the fact that the Xbox ecosystem has kind of been unlocked, right? And you have a PC, and you say, I have an SSD in my PC, and as long as I have the minimum specs, which you should probably be looking up those minimum specs for the
Yes,
medium.
I
Anyways,
think I do. I do. I
yeah,
got a pretty good PC, so
yeah. So exactly, that's what I'm saying. Like, you can play the game despite you don't have a Series S. And I bought a Series S because at the time I couldn't afford a Series X. Plus, I just want to wait till Halo Infinite comes out for a Series X. Especially, I'm really hoping that they release a special edition Series X for Halo Infinite, because I'm a massive Halo
oh,
fan.
it
My
would be a
number
mistake
number
not
one
to.
game franchise of any time. Exactly, it'd be a mistake. Number one franchise of any time in my whole entire life. I love Halo, and I'm gonna jump into the Series X when Halo Infinite comes out, despite the fact that I kind of know that it wasn't really made from the ground up for the Series X. But that doesn't bother me. Like, um, in
You
this
want
game,
to
the medium,
experience it at the best you can.
exactly,
Like
and
you don't want to play it on your S. You want to experience it's Halo. It's
yeah,
different. You
it's
want
Halo.
it's a new Halo too. It's been forever since they've had Halo.
I've been
A new
waiting over
Halo out.
5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, I haven't been waiting that long actively because I was really into Halo 5 up until 2017, where I kind of fell off the game. But I played it a lot in 2016. Like, I played Halo 5 a ton in 2016, so I wasn't actively thinking. But the whole Halo community was thinking like, oh, 2018 it's gonna come out. Anyways, that's not the topic right now. We can get into Halo in the future, and I could
Yes.
talk about Halo for days. I could talk about
Getting
Halo
off
for days.
track here.
Yeah, we're getting off track a little bit here, but the topic is the medium and the fact that this is an exclusive to the Series S and the Series X and PC, and that me, Infinite A, is going to be playing it, and my brother Crazy Mate, he's going to be playing on his PC.
Oh yes.
And we're super excited for it.
Like the monster, the Maw or whatever,
The Maw,
is the
the
name.
Maw.
It seems like eerie, so eerie, and how they also went in the video about how it's they've got a lot to do with sound, and the monster hears sound. You got to be quiet. It looks really immersive, and where the monster, it can't see you, but it can hear, and I'm excited. There's lots. I think they said the Maw is not the only monster.
They kind of
either.
alluded to that. They kind of
Kinda,
alluded
yeah.
to that when they were asked whether he's the main antagonist. They're kind of like, we don't really want to say much about that. We just want you to play the game. So he is an antagonist in the game. He may not be the main antagonist. I'm very interested to. I feel like the Maw has a wider story that there's a story there.
Story. I'm super excited for this story and this world. I can already tell that I'm gonna be diving deep into this world, and I'm gonna love it.
Exactly. I mean, one thing I really want to bring up about the medium though is combat. I'm just gonna say it. There's not traditional combat. There's not guns. There's not melee weapons in this game. So, pretty much, you have a set of spirit powers that you can use at certain times, right? And that is what you have at your disposal. It's you hide, you figure things out through.
That's the type of the horror, the psychological horror. That's in the genre. That's of horror. Like Blair Witch was like that, and you have. It's like not even a really horror game, but a Plague's Tale is kind of like that. It's like, well, you had your slingshot, but it's minimum combat. There's not very much combat. You're mostly stealth, trying to sneak around, and it's meant to be scary. So
Exactly, it's a scary game. It's a psychological thriller type of horror game, and I really love those type of games. It's not like Resident Evil where you can shoot your way out of it. You got to think. I mean, there are puzzles. There's puzzles in Resident Evil. There's puzzles in Silent Hill. And there's puzzles in this game. And specifically, I like puzzles in horror games better than puzzles in other games because when you have that fear, it makes you want to figure it out of how to get out of the pickle you're in. Per se, to like puzzles in other games like Tomb Raider or like Zelda, I like them, but there's not like this fear pushing you to be like, I need to figure this puzzle out because I'm scared right now. I need to figure this puzzle out, and that's gonna help me figure it out. You have an incentive almost, a push.
Yeah, that is a very good point.
So we talk about the medium being an Xbox Series S and X exclusive, and a reason for that is the dual worlds. There's dual worlds that are rendered at the same time, and it's not the same thing. I've heard people, specifically on Dealer's podcast, which actually surprised me. I heard them talk about why can't this be on the Xbox One? You can do split screen on MCC on the Xbox One.
I heard that they were generating two worlds at once.
They are. So the thing that's different between doing split screen and this is that the world that you're generating on a split screen game is just the same exact world being generated. You don't have to generate it twice. You generate it at the same time. It's just that you take a capability of another, you split the screen in another player and another controller. Yeah,
it's not the same because the layout is, yes, but it looks completely different. And so you could build that world, the whole world that looks that way, and then you have the whole world. So it's basically like it's like the idea of these are two different worlds. You have your the spirit world, and then you have your normal world, and they are different.
Especially when you get into cutscenes.
Yes.
Or let's just interactive
And
scenes.
I
Let's
think they
even just say
want the
interactive
most
scenes.
detail out of it to
Exactly.
really feel
So
like
if you
you're in
have
these worlds.
So specifically in this 14-minute gameplay that they showed off, the trailer that they showed off, specifically it showed a part where in the spirit world, Marianne was talking to someone in the spirit world, but she wasn't talking to them in the real world, and it looked like she was just talking to air. But the thing is, you're rendering a completely different scene
You are.
for one world than the other. It's not just you render a world and you take and you put two different characters in there with two different controllers and you split the screen in half and you play the game where the world's still only being rendered once. It's a separate world. It's two different renderings, and that's specifically what I want to get at the point of why this can't be done on the Xbox One.
That's why. Because you
Yeah.
have two different worlds, and talking about it and trying to understand the reason why that is the way that is. They wanted to do something different, and they did. They really did. I really do think, when I think about it, like the idea of the two different worlds. Like, it's more of a feel of, this is something completely different. This world is not the same. It's eerie. It's terrifying. It's dangerous. And then you have the other world that's more, yeah, it's kind of gray, bleak, but it's familiarized and you know it. And it's not as scary or eerie, or I don't know. When you think about it, it adds to the feel, and they want to make it look like that, as close to that world as possible, so they may create two completely different worlds.
Exactly. So, I mean, we're brothers, we're blood brothers, and we game a lot together, and we're interested in some of the same games and stuff, and we do have a lot of the same ideas, and so we may agree with each other on some points and may not on others, but we're both going to play this game, and when the game comes out, we're going to talk about it on our podcast because we're both going to play it. He's going to play on
I'm
a
going to talk
PC.
about my impressions of it, yes.
Exactly. So he's a Crazy Mate is mostly a PC gamer for the most part, and me personally, I'm more of an Xbox gamer or console gamer for the most part in general. So that's some differences we do have. Just to point that out, I want to let everyone know that we aren't the same people. We may agree on a lot of the same things, but throughout the life of this podcast, I'm sure we will disagree on some things too.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. We're not going to agree on everything, of course. And
Well,
it's like my experiences are completely different than your experiences. It's like in just the games we play, the games we like to play,
yeah,
and the platform we play on.
it's just different. But we could talk more about the medium. And one last point, I really want to I I want to talk about the design of the game because it's designed to not have a first person perspective or a third person perspective, but it's more like these camera angles that stay still until you move to a different area and then the camera angle moves. It's kind of like early Resident Evil games and Silent Hill games, and there's a reason that they did that because, well, for one, the developers were saying that it kind of made them feel sick to play in first person or third person with the way the game was, but also because it gives a different feel, and it's a vibe of a horror game really works in that fixed camera angle that isn't like a third person over the shoulder angle, but more along the lines of one fixed camera for an area and then you move and then there's another fixed camera for an area. It makes you feel less in control, but also it doesn't make you feel sick.
Yeah, I could get that. You have two simultaneous worlds, and you're spinning around. You're having to have two characters look around. It's like, okay, I can't even focus on both of those at once. A fixed
Exactly.
camera angle. Okay, you look
Especially
at
with
the
this
area. I get an idea of the area, and I can see my character be moving, and see where I'm going. So of course that makes sense.
and sound design.
Oh, sound. Yes, sound design. About, are you talking about uh, the sound of design in the two different worlds? There's
Well, yeah, you
each
can bring
world
that
has
up.
each world has different music and different sound in it, and the uh, Spirit World was actually composed by the same person who did Silent Hill.
Exactly. That is
And
true.
but you
And
have
that's
the two.
awesome.
They're meant to give you two completely different feels. These worlds, each one.
Yeah, and just the sound design in general when it comes to a horror game, I believe it's like I really want the sound design to be excellent. And the same composer with the music, you know, composer, right? Um, that that worked on Silent Hill, is working on this new game, The Medium. And I feel like this game's going to push the horror genre forward, where it's kind of been stagnant in a way.
It's
Like, yeah,
it's
Resident
new.
Evil.
It's unique. It's interesting. It's something that you don't really see, and you really haven't at all because of the two completely different worlds. You have that. You need an SSD for it. Of course, nobody would have made that for a console because they couldn't do it.
Exactly. Well, the sound design, I'm really excited for the game, and I really hope the sound design is amazing and makes me feel scared while I'm
Oh,
playing the
I think it
game.
will.
And I think it will too. But we got to move on from the medium. We're going to talk more about it, especially in the coming weeks. It's actually
Oh
going to be
yeah,
a
more
major
we
topic
hear
when the
about
game
it, we're
comes
gonna
out.
talk about any news that comes out when we play it.
2 weeks.
Ooh, I'm excited.
2 weeks until it comes out. Oh, yeah. And with some decent headphones as well,
Yes.
like CMBR said, with some decent headphones, and you put your headphones on, you get in the dark room. If this is what you like, I mean, I
Oh,
personally
I like
want
doing
to
that.
play the
I'm gonna
medium
do
by
that.
putting my headphones on, getting in the dark room, and sitting in front of my monitor, because with my Series S, I actually play on a monitor now. And I'm just gonna play the heck out of that game. And but the next topic that we got on our docket is moving past the medium, and we're now talking about, this is a smaller topic, but I thought it would be a little funny to talk about. Also, like, there could be some truth to this, I don't know, but it was something I saw, and I retweeted it. I saw an article, I looked at the article, I read the article, I retweeted it on my Twitter account at Infinite A117, and I just thought it'd be fun to share. So this is the topic about Xbox AA batteries and a supposed deal with Duracell, and that's why. What do you
Yeah.
think about that, bro? Crazy mate?
Well, that's just companies do that. They make deals with other companies. That's you have, and it it gives them a discount. It helps out both parties. Basically, I sell my product to you uh, at a discount or whatever, and you do something for me. I do something for you. You do something for me. These contracts where they make Duracell makes all of Xbox's batteries for the console, for the controllers, and Duracell still has batteries. They want to sell them, but I don't think that's not the exact reason why. That could be a kind of part of it, but the exact reason why is because people still use batteries. People do,
It's true.
and
I mean,
if you can take out your batteries and have even rechargeable batteries and put them in, and you can take about it's like phones where they got rid of the ability to take out your battery and
and
doing like that.
a
It's
lot of
like,
people weren't happy about that,
yeah,
because people would buy extra batteries, so when their phone died, they just, oh, I got a battery in
you
my
buy $1,000
purse, in my
phone and then
car, in my wallet, in
all
my locker.
and all of a sudden your battery's shot. You got to get a new phone. You can't, or go take that in specially to get it taken apart if you even can, and put a new battery in there.
Exactly. Well, I think it's funny how the PlayStation, like, hardcore fan base, like, seems to despise the fact that Xbox still uses AA batteries, when instead of just going straight and doing completely lithium ion, you know, non-removable battery, like PlayStation has been doing since the PS3. I mean, the article that I read about Xbox and Duracell have a supposed deal, like, it's kind of like a rumor or something, but The article I read specifically says that yes, PlayStation has had a non-removable battery, a rechargeable non-removable battery since the PS3, and that was 2006. So you give them that, but honestly, like I have a PS4, and for the longest time, I only owned one controller, and I'd play exclusives on there. And when my controller died, unless I had this long ass cord because I played my PS4 on my couch, then I just had to wait till my batteries were charged, or have another controller.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to bring up. It's like I have my controller in my hand. I'm playing on. Usually, I have I have two rechargeable batteries, and how much they cost?
Yeah, not like 20
No,
bucks.
yeah, $20 versus a controller, and you have two of them. And when your battery dies, oh, I'll take it out and swap it to a new one while the other one's charging. With PlayStation, you got to get a whole new controller for that.
Yeah,
To have the
exactly.
two
And you have
charging,
to have
that's a lot
numerous
more.
ones on hand.
Or just I'll just buy more batteries and I'll use more batteries. It keeps you gaming. It helps. It does because like you said, some people just own one controller. A lot of people, casuals, probably just own one controller, and once their battery dies, we're like, oh, I guess I'm done playing. Put it on the charger and forget about it. And when it's fully charged, may not even play it till the next day. Play till the next day.
Exactly. Like, do you think that there's a deal? I mean, in the
I
article,
think
it
there's a
says the
deal.
spokesperson says something along the lines that, you know, there is a deal, but at the same time, I think the deal isn't just if there is a deal for one. I don't think it's one of those things where it prevents Xbox from making controllers that have internal rechargeable batteries, right? That you can't take them out. I don't think it prevents them. I think it's a deal where Duracell makes their batteries and they market Duracell anytime they have a controller or something, and they have a
Yeah.
marketing deal per se pretty much with Duracell, and it doesn't. Yeah.
You make our batteries for us, and it's like I said, like it has a small part to do with that of why it may have a small part to do with why they, but it's not the majority of it. The majority is because that's what people like. That's what a lot of people and a lot of casuals, and it's like you see these people that have the idea of, well, just put the battery. Yeah, that's the way you like it, and that's the way you have it. But that's you. That's not majority of gamers. That's not the majority of people.
Well, it's the majority of PlayStation. I mean, it's all of the PlayStation
Well, yeah,
gamers
all
because they're
PlayStation
forced.
gamers. Of
That
course, they don't have a
it,
choice.
it's a choice taken out. You know, it's a choice taken away. So like they spin it negatively. They say, "Oh, why you guys are old school? Like even though you guys are a forward-thinking company, why are you still holding on to these '90s charger sticks and these '90s like batteries? They're so dumb. Who uses those anymore?" Yeah, I have an icon lights, right? That I have an option to either plug my Xbox icon light with a micro USB cord to a USB A or use AAA batteries. But it's like I'm using up so much USB ports already on my PC being set up right next to my computer. I mean, my PC being set up right next to my monitor, my Series S on the other side, right? And I have my Switch on a shelf above it so that I can play all my games on this monitor from my PC, my Switch, and my Xbox Series, right? But I don't even really have the ports. And I just went out and I bought AAA batteries. It's not, in my opinion, batteries are, are a thing like a hammer.
You can look at
You don't go to a framer and say, "Why are you using a hammer? That's dumb. You need to use this." I mean, yeah, we use nail guns. Framers use nail guns, but that's one of those things that I'm just like, that was an analogy or something.
you can look at everything Microsoft does, and you can point it to options, customization, uh, opening doors, building more doors. That it's giving the customers options for their experience and what they want their experience to be and what they want. They're making the variety of people a lot bigger with everything they're doing, and you can see it in the controllers, and look at it that way.
Exactly. Like, and I actually do want to say that this article was released and Microsoft commented and they said it's about choice. That's pretty much it. They didn't say it wasn't a deal. They didn't say it is a deal. They just said it's about choice. We want choice.
Yeah, plain and simple. And they want that with everything, with the majority of things that they're trying to do.
Exactly. Like we see it. There's so much choice. Like you want to play a game, you can play it on your phone, you can play it on your PC, maybe even on your TV without a console in the future. And you can play it on your tablet. You can play it on your Xbox Series S, your Xbox Series X. You can play it on your Xbox One. You can play it on your Xbox One S or your Xbox One X. And there's just so much choice.
Game Pass, they're trying to put every genre of games in there, and
Hmm.
for variety of games, variety of choices. Not everybody's the same. A lot of people like different types of games.
Exactly.
You think of
So
a major AAA game is like so popular, but you'll have a ton of love hundreds of thousands of people that don't even care for that type of game. Millions of people that don't even care for that type of game.
exactly. And some
For
people
that game.
want to be able to use rechargeable batteries, and some people want to be able to use these old old sticks that are, AA batteries. But we move forward away from this topic. It was a small one. Now, this is a pretty major topic, and this is where we're going to end the show. I want to talk about Xbox Series X and PS5 longevity, but I also want to talk about what Xbox did in 2020 and what PlayStation did in 2020. So it's like a two pronged topic. I want to, what are your thoughts about how well Xbox and PlayStation did in 2020 and major things that happened and major events, and the fact that new consoles came out and games that came out as well, and just major news beats that happened last year. But then I also want you to, after you're done talking about that and your thoughts on that, I want to ask you, like, what do you think about Xbox Series longevity versus PS5 longevity? Like, do you think that the Xbox Series has a better it, it's a better for longevity, or do you think PS5 is better for longevity? Like,
Well, I can
who
point to
knows?
one thing right now that shows that the Xbox is better longevity, and it's a major reason why they don't have as many consoles out in the wild. It's because they waited. They waited for new technology. They waited for RDNA 2 technology in their uh, it was their CPUs or GPUs.
They RDNA's GPU,
Yeah,
Zen CPU.
their GPUs. They waited for that, and that puts them to where they can sit on this lot, and it's it's already a powerhouse. It's really impressive, and we're just developers are just dipping their toes into what they can do with it, and the better technology, the more recent technology you have, the longer you're gonna have people being able to find new things out about it, new things, and then more more things can be added in software wise later or something that it expands it even more. And they've got machine learning as well. There's so
That's
much things.
important.
They're pushing into xCloud and uh, into the mobile gaming market. They're trying to expand so much in so many different horizons, so many different directions. They're trying to push to the future, and PlayStation is going to adapt these things. They're gonna, but they're you can already see they're behind in a lot of these things of what the industry's going and moving forward. And Xbox is leading the charge to innovation and to the future of the gaming industry, in my opinion.
Um, I see your point. I mean, when we talk about the longevity, I mean specifically, I think there are numerous things about it that aren't just cut and dry. You brought up RDNA 2 and the fact they waited for full RDNA 2, and you brought up machine learning specifically. and the fact that it's a full feature set, but also like the controller. PlayStation did innovate on their controller. It is something new, and it may be proven to be a gimmick in a few years, but who knows? I do think there are quite a few people who like the innovations of the PS5 controller,
Oh yeah,
and
I'm
they
not
think the
saying that
Xbox
they're not
Series.
innovating. That PlayStation's not. It's not what I'm trying. I can get how that comes across as it, but that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just saying you look at so many things that Xbox is doing. It's like, and how they really are trying to push it. Like I said, I think they are leading the way in a lot of parts, and it's like when you have that competition, it's gonna force Sony to push back and push harder, and they're gonna innovate as well. And it's you, both of them raising each other up through competition, trying to be more innovative than the other.
And that's what we want out of
That's
the industry.
exactly what we want.
Well, we could bring up that survey. That probably won't really ever be a topic, but we can just bring it up real quick since we're talking about longevity and feature sets that Xbox has, PlayStation doesn't have, or that PlayStation has and Xbox doesn't have. And just like innovation and who do we think's going to do better long term. I'm not even just saying sales. I'm not just saying sales. I'm saying like what is the better choice? If I was a gamer that wanted to jump into next gen, do I either buy a Series X or a PlayStation 5? And I'm not thinking now, I'm thinking what's the better choice and bang for my buck from the whole life that I'm going to have this and play it. Like that's what I'm talking about.
Well, you have Xbox. You have Xbox have building up their studios. PlayStation is doing that as well.
Yes, they are doing that, but I don't. They're not. They already
it's
had a
like
good enough
they haven't
developer
really.
base and studio base that they're not having to bolster it as much. But I also think if they don't eventually do that, then they won't be able to keep up with Xbox when it comes to the studios they're pushing out.
You can see already the development time that it takes for their games, and when
Three to
they're
5 years.
bangers when they release, they're huge. Yeah, and Xbox pushing out more content, and with Game Pass, it's all for a subscription. Their first party studios, and they have so much of them pushing them out every year. From I think you'll get every year you're going to get a at least one game from first party studio, one game, and I hope that they are bangers, huge games. They need to be, or
Well,
else you're
I
not
believe.
gonna.
I be-
You're still gonna be in the boat of all the Xbox first party's trash, and they just make okay games, and not these huge hitters like Sony.
Game Pass fodder is
Game
what some
Pass
people
fodder,
call
yeah.
it. Well, specifically, the point I was trying to make, I didn't mean to interrupt or anything, but the point I was trying to make is they have 23 studios, right? And there's numerous studios that has numerous different teams. So how many teams? Like 35 different teams, I think is the count. Where one one exclusive per year doesn't make sense. They want one per quarter.
Yes.
They want to eventually have one
Eventually.
exclusive first party game per quarter.
But I think they're ready now to at least have one per year.
You're right. Yes, I think they. I mean,
We know
they've always released at least one per year. They've always released at least one first party per year.
But they felt pushed and rushed. They're not.
True.
They couldn't. They weren't able to take their time with it, and to be able to say it's done when it's done, and not you have to. This is the release date. You have to put it on. It gives them more time, and it's like I don't think Sony's and PlayStation's developers really, for the most part, have that feel of they had to rush it and push it out quickly, because even though it's not they give them the time to do what they need with it to make it this incredible game that's going to be a big seller and a big hit.
PlayStation didn't need that, not necessarily because they had tons of studios. It's because they had enough studios that were well known, pushed out good games regularly, but also they pushed the whole first like 3 years of the PS4, 3-4 years of the PS4 generation. It was greatness awaits, greatness awaits, greatness awaits. We're Sony, we're the big dogs. We've been doing this for a long time. We know what we're doing. Trust us. And it was a
Yes.
marketing ploy as well, where they said greatness awaits. So we need to see marketing from Xbox saying, "Hey, games are coming, games coming," and especially if they can hit that 4 a year, one a quarter rate, they could be like, "Hey, don't unsubscribe from Game Pass because you're just gonna want to subscribe again. I promise you," type of thing, and not just not saying it in like a mean like way where you think you're on top of the world, like just say, "Hey, just think about this. There could be a game each quarter. Be like, hey, this is our plan and goal. And if people see this happening, there's one game a quarter, and they're like, hey, why would I unsubscribe from Game Pass when there's a new game coming out 4 months from now, and it's gonna drop in Game Pass."
Yeah, exactly. That's what they want. They want people to stay in the system, and they want people not to just subscribe and forget about it. Like you have people like that though, and then rarely play. They want people playing games. They want them playing games.
They want people. They want
games.
They want
the
active
interaction.
users.
It looks good to stockholders. It looks good for investments. It looks. The analytics is good. They want, but not that they want people playing games. That's I honestly think Phil Spencer just wants people to enjoy games like he does.
You're right, he does, but also Xbox has got to make money.
Well, of course,
and
that's
the thing
business side of it. But I'm talking about Phil Spencer as a gamer, as a person.
Phil Spencer's kind of two different people in my opinion. He's got the massive gamer side, but he does have an ear for business. Like he knows business and like how people think. But yeah, it's like games coming to the platform has always been the thing. It's like exclusive games was always the major thing. And back in 2016 when they stopped pushing exclusives, technical exclusives, because it came to PC, there was a narrative that was like, Xbox has no exclusives. Xbox has no exclusives. Halo Wars 2 is not an exclusive, all these games that came out on PC, in 2017, like, it's harder to think of some because there wasn't a massive amount of games, but, like, you see, Gears 4 is not an exclusive. Gears 5 is not an exclusive. Sea of Thieves is not an exclusive. Crackdown 3 is not an exclusive. But the industry's pushing forward differently, where exclusives aren't the same as they used to be. It's an ecosystem.
It is, and that's what they want.
Imagine exclusivity with Netflix, where they say you can only watch Netflix if you own an LG TV, smart TV. Doesn't make sense.
No, that wouldn't make sense. Let's see, you want the barrier to entry, the minimum, and you want the most.
But Sony can't cling on forever. They really can't. To old ways, They can't. And I love what you brought up in the chat is the fact that Sony is paying Microsoft for Azure servers because they don't have their own infrastructure. Despite the fact that they bought Gaikai, I think is what it was, back in like 2013, they still weren't able to build up server infrastructure off of the company that they bought out in Gaikai, right?
Yeah.
That they're looking, if they want to compete when it comes to a Game Pass type model or Play Anywhere type model that isn't just on PC or console, that's on phones and tablets and TVs, that they have to create a better server base.
Yeah, and they're going to have to unless they want to keep giving Microsoft money.
Well, the deal could be there forever, and that's not what I'm talking about. They can keep giving Microsoft money for servers if they can make enough money back on the back end
Yes.
with their platform, with their ecosystem, with their platform,
And they need
with
to try and they need to push to to get that and to actually use what they're paying for to make them more money and to make them more money and to get more people on their into their ecosystem, build up their ecosystem, because their ecosystem is a platform, or is the PlayStation console.
So
Pretty much.
CMBR brings something up in the chat that is actually really puts some perspective on things, and it makes me think that Microsoft, if if they are being paid, for Sony to use their servers, then it's in Microsoft's best interest that Sony stays doing well. But we see this already with Phil Spencer, despite the fact that yes, Microsoft wants everything in the cloud. They have for a while, and it's slowly starting to get there now. But they have massive cloud infrastructure, one of the biggest in the world. Amazon and Microsoft and Google, three biggest cloud infrastructure in the whole entire world, right? Where in Microsoft's perspective, it's better for the industry and them as a company if Sony's doing well. But also, like, Microsoft wants Sony to do well, Xbox wants Sony to do well specifically, and I'm talking Phil Spencer, because it's competition.
And competition is just better. You don't want a one game massive gaming company and gaming corporation.
No,
Because then they
you don't
control
want a
everything.
monopoly.
They control everything, and you want that choice. And why would you get rid of it? It's not good for the industry. It's not good for anybody. Because what's the need? They've got a monopoly. Why would they innovate when, or why would they be pushed to innovate faster and better if they've got nobody pushing on them? If they're just, we don't we don't need to. We're already on the top. Nobody's gonna take over.
And when you talk about competition, it's not necessarily Phil Spencer doesn't even necessarily care about competition of the platform, like when it comes to Xbox consoles.
No.
It's more about the ecosystem. He cares about competition of the ecosystem. Innovation, game innovation is a massive thing I want to see. Like, I think in this next decade, we're going to see game innovation unlike we've seen before. We're going to be we already started playing games differently this past decade with more multiplayer games, more games as a service. But the fact I want, like, even if VR comes off or augmented reality, it changes the way you play and interact with games, and that's what they're trying to do. They want to make better games, change interactions with games, make more diverse games, and compete on that front, as well as an ecosystem with services and everything.
I yeah, and both companies are gonna do so, but in my opinion, I think Xbox is a must. You gotta be in the Xbox ecosystem. Not even I'm not saying you gotta buy an Xbox because you don't need to. You don't need to do that anymore. You gotta be in the Xbox ecosystem. They're doing great things, and you can't deny it.
Nope, there's no denying it. And the article I actually pulled for this topic when we talk about longevity of the Xbox Series X versus the PlayStation 5 was a Digital Trends article where the writer actually says that he changed his mind. He says I have both a PS5 and a Series X, and for me the PS5 was the top dog. But the more I play my Series X, like, I'm actually enjoying it more. And one of the big reasons he says the change of heart is due to the way the wider Microsoft ecosystem is unifying my game experiences. So he changed his mind and now thinks the better long-term choice is a Series X and not a PS5, even though the short-term better choice in his opinion was the PS5. It had more appeal jumping into the gen, the very beginning, the first couple months, even maybe the first year, maybe even the first 2 years, compared to depending on who you are. But this
Yeah,
writer on this Digital Trends article says that he changed his mind because of Microsoft ecosystem. That's important to me. That's what I wanted to get off of this topic, is what matters to Microsoft is their ecosystem, where what seems to matter to Sony is their consoles.
Yeah, and I think they need to change that mentality, where they're going to
I think
be
they're
locked
slowly
in the
starting
past.
to change it, but they're clinging to the old ways, where they got too many people there. They're saying like, ooh, and I think honestly one of the reasons that that executive was booted last year, I forget his name, but now we got Jim Dance Moves Ryan, because I think a lot of it was he didn't want to change in certain ways, or maybe he wanted to be too radical. I don't know, but it's this unifying experience. Take my games on the go, an entertainment hub, but it's not pushing entertainment above gaming. You know, it's not pushing movies and videos above gaming, but it's still an entertainment hub. You know?
Yeah, yeah, they they want they just want people in their ecosystem. It's like, even if it's buying movies, still makes them money or whatever, but they're prioritizing games, and the that's what you need to do. And you can see it, and by what they're doing, that's that, like you said,
It's important.
it's to come, and it's important, and the games are coming. We are giving you proof of what is to come, that things are coming, and it's not just gonna be the dude bro shooter box or dude bro shooter
Exactly.
platform.
It's no long Xbox doesn't want to be known, and they haven't wanted to be known for a while, and they've been trying to change this. Is they don't want to be known as the dude bro shooter box, you know? And Japanese titles. I watched this video of someone who was a Nintendo gamer for the past decade, and he said he owned an Xbox 360, he loved Gears and stuff, but he was always like a Nintendo dude, and he just quit Xbox, right? He just stopped playing Xbox, and he's like, one of the things that brought me back, and now have an Xbox Series X, is what he says. He's like, one of the things that brought me back is Japanese games. They're pushing more Japanese games, diversity.
Yeah, yeah. It's you get more people. You, you widen your area. The more people can come in. The more people uh, you can attract.
Exactly. That is true. And one one of the last things I want to point out on this longevity topic before we move on to the second prong, which was how we think Xbox PlayStation did in 2020. I don't want to go too much into that because we're running out of time. But I want to say one of the things about an entertainment hub that they're pushing that isn't throwing it in your face is, imagine having Game Pass on a phone, Game Pass Ultimate, and you were like, hey, I'm going to try this out. It's Game Pass Ultimate. I can play games on the go. I don't need to own an Xbox, right? And they say, hey, here's a perk. Get a month free of um, Disney Plus and watch The Mandalorian. You never bought an Xbox, yet Game Pass helped you watch a show called The Mandalorian that you may have never watched.
Or wanted to watch, but uh, didn't want to pay for that, or I don't know, or
Exactly.
there's lots of reasons you could get into of how potentially it helps, and it could do more for you than just uh, what's on the surface, what people see on the surface.
True. So let's get into our thoughts about last year and like what Xbox did good, what PlayStation did good, and maybe give it a score. I don't know. I mean, like, how was their year in 2020? What do you think from watching the news? I know you don't own an Xbox Series console or a PS5, but you have an Xbox One, you have a PS4. I mean, just recently I got you a PS4 for Christmas, but what are your thoughts on how they did? You know, last year.
Well, I think they did both. They both did really good. You have uh, The Last of Us Part 2 that released this year for PlayStation. You have Ghost of Tsushima that released this year. Those are two big games, and they were two popular games. You have both companies dropping consoles, and the important thing is both of them. I think both of them did better than they did last year.
Years prior.
Well, besides PlayStation and Japanese market, because I think, and this was Boom's on Boom's podcast that he said that an analyst, a Japanese analyst, said that in an article they stated that they sold less than 1 million PlayStations in Japan. PlayStations. That's not just PlayStation 5s, that's PlayStation 4s as well. But overall both companies did better than they did prior years. And you had great games from both companies. Personally, I loved Ori and the Will of the Wisp. That's such an amazing game. You have Grounded that blew up. You have major purchases and major acquisition in Bethesda showing towards the future. You have Game Pass exploding even more. You have EA Play coming into Game Pass as part of Game Pass.
You had Horizon Zero Dawn come to the PC.
Yeah, you had Horizon Zero Dawn come to the PC. It's just, I just see it as that both, they did greater than they did the prior year, and that's what's mattered. That's what's important. That's what you want. That's what they want.
Both consoles are sold out. Around the world, obviously. I mean, they allocate certain numbers for certain areas, but Xboxes are sold out, PlayStations are sold out. They both seem to be doing really well. I think Xbox is actually not doing better, but in a way they're gaining more traction than PlayStation through the last year. I think 2020 saw Xbox gaining a good amount of traction where PlayStation just seemed to stagnate and stay the same for the most part when it came to traction. I mean, yeah, they're still selling a lot of consoles. They still put out good games, but like Xbox's traction pushed through the roof, and they were able to grab a hold on things. And even with stumbles, even with the May showcase and the July showcase and all these stumbles, they were able to do so much.
Yeah, and that's good. They both have really great years, and it's just gonna keep getting better from here on out. And
yes,
you should be excited. If you're an Xbox fan, you just don't have people beating on you down, just saying, "Oh, you always say, wait till next year, because you kind of always." It's kind of what it's been like, you know. It really is a lot closer, and you can see it. You can see the writing on the walls, and it's exciting for both.
Yeah, and the fact that Xbox can go out there and they can say the things they do on social media and not take things too seriously. With like memes in the beginning of the year with like the refrigerator and stuff. They even made, this is a massive thing I want to talk about. They even made a refrigerator as a giveaway for like Twitter giveaway or something. They made an Xbox Series X refrigerator.
Greg was born this year. Amazing Greg.
Yeah.
Craig. Or not Greg. Craig. Amazing Craig.
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, Craig was born. He's not my favorite. I mean, it is funny, but the fact that they took that as constructive criticism, even though people were pretty much hating on them for it, they're like, hey, yes, we need to do better.
They're used to it by now. They're so used to just hate, so much criticism, so much hatred and pushing down on them that they're done letting it sway what they do, really, in a way.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we could talk all day and night about.
Oh, I could talk.
It'd take a while.
So I could talk about games for so long.
Yeah.
especially
And
with you, bro.
it would take too long to be able to talk about everything PlayStation did in 2020 and everything that Xbox did in 2020, and that's not even counting Nintendo. Which this
Yeah,
for 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 perspective, this podcast isn't an Xbox podcast. We like Xbox better than we like PlayStation and
and you
Nintendo.
will see that. You'll see that because
But
it's
this
like
is not an Xbox
it's not.
podcast. We'll talk a little more about them sometimes and maybe the majority of the time. But I love PlayStation. I love my game of the year of 2020. It was a divisive game made by Naughty Dog called The Last of Us Part Two. That was my game of the year. I love PlayStation and Nintendo. I love Nintendo. Like I own a Switch. I own a PlayStation 4. I own an Xbox Series and Xbox One. It's like and I have a PC too, and you play PC. This isn't a podcast where we're going to be talking about Xbox exclusively, even if we're going to lean towards Xbox, which has been the case so far.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that, and we're not we're not saying we're not we have a bias towards Xbox. Of course we do. That's our preferred platform,
Well,
and
your preferred
but
console, I'd say. Your preferred platform's PC, bro.
well, no, I'm in the Windows ecosystem. I have Game Pass for PC, and I play games on that a lot.
True. You are actually a massive part of the Xbox ecosystem because Game Pass. You mainly play games from Game Pass on PC
I
and not
you
your
see
Xbox One S as much.
I or even this. I own The Long Dark on Steam, and when it came to Game Pass, I started playing it on that too. I love achievements. I love the ecosystem
True.
of Xbox, and that's why I could completely throw away all the time I played, the fun time I had with on
In the long
Steam
dark.
for the Long Dark, and start over uh, on a new on through the Game Pass app through Game Pass.
Yeah. And you love the achievements, Xbox achievements over, Steam achievements and stuff. And it is it, it's a great time to be a gamer. I will
It
admit
is,
that
yes.
there's so many different things in the world going on, and games are our escape a lot of times, and gaming is only getting better and better and better, and it's not letting up. So let's get hyped about gaming, you know, and Game Pass on Switch, that would be crazy.
Yeah,
uh, you kind of have to have a Switch that has like LTE or 5G or something. I don't know, because unless you could download them if you had Wi-Fi, like took it on the go as a downloaded game, but that would be
that would
kind of
be
crazy.
interesting. I wouldn't know what. That would be very interesting to see. I don't think it's likely, but you
I
never
don't know.
know.
Stranger
Never
things have
know.
happened. It'd have to
Yeah.
be a curated Game Pass for Switch. It has to be,
Yes.
in my opinion, it'd have to be curated because I don't think they're gonna really let any third-party games on Game Pass for Switch when they want to sell them to the store. But especially, I mean, because it's not their own, like it's not a Nintendo platform. Game
No.
Pass is an Xbox platform ecosystem. But anyways, I think we need to wrap it up here, bro.
Yeah.
Crazy
It's
mate.
we're coming hour and 50 on this one, not
Been
counting
over
the
2 hours counting
technical
our other stream.
difficulties.
Um, so this is the BIA Gamecast, and we talked about earlier. We're talking about all games and not just Xbox, but please subscribe to the BIA Gamecast on YouTube. Follow at BIA Gamecast on Twitter, and follow both me and Crazy Mate on Twitter, as well as Crazy Mate
YouTube.
has a
I have
YouTube
a YouTube
channel.
channel, but I haven't really been doing anything with it. But New Year, and I'm going to start uh, making videos in it, and I may do. I think I might start with the medium. Maybe I'll do that.
Oh yeah, dude.
Show the world what my reaction to the medium when first playing it. But
But yeah,
Heck
on
yeah!
Infinite
Thank you
A.
for joining us. Thank you for if you're watching on the replay. Thank you. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, turn on notification bell, follow at BI Gamecast on Twitter, and we'll be back next week. And stay tuned to the channel every week. Wednesdays at 7 Mountain Standard Time, and just enjoy gaming, everybody.
Yes. All right.
Peace.